All right, hello everybody. Welcome to the March 23rd libp2p weekly sync. I'm popping the notes into chat. Feel free to add your async updates. If you have any agenda items, anything you want to talk about, go ahead and add those, and we'll try to make sure we prioritize at the beginning of the list so we get through them. There are a bunch of people on the DHT teams crunching away, so they may not make it to this meeting, but hopefully we'll have a release this week of the DHT. So in preparation for the IPFS 0.5 release. Please add your name to the attendance list and we will get started with weekly updates. Bashko.
Hey all, so on Stardust Land, I addressed some reviews from last week on the examples and integration PRs for JS libp2p and JS IPFS. The other PR that I had with the Docker file and Prometheus instrumentation was merged. This will allow an easy deploy both for the libp2p infra team and for our users who want to deploy their own server. After that, today I had a meeting with Jacob for planning Q2 work in JS libp2p, and the rest of last week I started working on the improvements for PeerStar in JS. Basically, I created a plan divided into 6 milestones. It is on the issue if anyone wants to check it out or provide feedback. Basically, I also created sub-issues containing some proposals and design decisions for some of the milestones. I'm still creating the other ones as the time passes. And I started working also on the initial milestone, which basically will decouple our peer store, which currently is just a map with all the peer information of each peer into an address book and a proto book. So for this week, I want to have the final release of Stardust shipped. This is just pending some final reviews on the examples. And after that, I will ask Machi, which is on the call, to release it. And I will also sync with the libp2p infra team so that we can have a couple of servers deployed. And other than that, I will continue working on PeerStar, getting this week a PR with the milestone one, and continue working on proposals for the remaining milestones. And that's it for me. Any questions?
I see in next that the goal is to have Stardust released this week. Is that on track? That's super exciting.
Yes, it will be released, but then we will need to wait for the servers to get deployed in order to guide people to use our examples and just point to the servers instead of they having to run their own, which will be easier for them to start, but then in a production level, they should have their own. But yeah, for being usable, it will be this week, I hope.
Great. Any other questions for Vasco? No. All right. Next up is me. Yeah, so we've got, along with Stardust, we've also have WebRTC Star is automatically getting deployed to Docker Hub. So we have containers there. Go there to unblock the infra team so that they can get things deployed. So we'll be working with them to try to get WebRTC and Stardust servers deployed, and we'll look at migrating away from the WebSocket Star servers and spinning those down over time, so we can just replace those with the new ones. And then this week I'm going to be focused on collecting metrics and running test ground test cases for the DHT updates, so that we can get the RC out the door there. And then this week also working on Q2 OKR planning. I think the big thing that I'm going to be looking at working on in Q2 is kind of an overhaul to the JS libp2p crypto, because we need to make sure that we have support for noise and ED25519 keys, and without bloating the bundle size, it's going to require a overhaul to cleaning up the crypto repo. Otherwise, JS IPFS and JS libp2p bundles will be gigantic. So I'll be working on that likely over the next few weeks. Any questions for me? No, good. All right. Next up, Mache.
So last week I've done the reviews for the Stardust PRs, and This week I will fix a few minor issues that are still left open. After that, I'll release the final version of Stardust, and with that, everything should be good to go for placing WebSocket Star after years.
Any questions for Maciej?
That's awesome. Congratulations.
Next up, Yusuf.
So I've mostly just been doing the gossip sub test ground setup work for the past about 2 weeks, I guess, ish. I don't know. And we're now at the point where we're starting to be able to run tests and get results, but there's not yet much to say about it, except that it looks promising. So let's see. And then on my need to do list, I'm just sort of like slapping myself for not having finished the edit to the noise spec, which I ought to have done weeks ago. And hopefully by saying this out loud, I will shame myself into really doing it. If I haven't done it by next week, will somebody please politely slap me? But hopefully I'll be able to get it done. But in the next,
I'll set a Slack reminder for you. We can automate these things.
Thank you, Raul. I appreciate that. But that's all that's really in my brain. Mostly I'm just trying to do the gossip sub stuff. So.
Great. Any questions for Yusuf? Once, twice, sold. Next up, Will.
We got, thanks to Stephen, an AutoNat sort of waypoint milestone. So there's a sub-release and libp2p will use it. So some follow-up PRs there, and then trying to spend some time getting metrics and collection of that stuff a little bit better shape, and then responding to PRs and figuring out what else needs to happen for 0.5.
Great. Any questions for Will? All right, Raul.
Sorry, I was just creating a reminder for Yusuf. Right. So yeah, test ground 0.3 was released last week, and now we're gonna be preparing to pair up with IPFS 0.5 and jump onto the release train to actually release test ground to the world as well. So it's gonna be a bunch of work around that. Last week I also worked on scaling Redis, as most of you saw. Within the Docker environment and also Kubernetes, along with Anton. I added Prometheus instrumentation to the sync service, which I think is going to be very valuable for instances where we think that the sync service is stuck. And yeah, did very little libp2p per se in itself, focused mostly on test ground. And as of this week, I'm going to be producing a technical design for test plan management. This is basically the idea. It's kind of like, it's going to be a larger re-architecture of test ground in the sense that we need to very clearly define the roles of a daemon and a client, who's going to be building things, what are the manifests actually going to be used for? Are they just used on the client side to provide a nice porcelain, or are they also used on the daemon side of things? How are we going to ship code to the daemon? Because ideally we want the daemon to not be owning any code. If we want code to be, test plan code to be picked up from and sourced from different places, then it should not be managed by the daemon, which is the way that it works right now. So all these things I'm going to be writing a technical design for. I'm going to be reviewing the gossip sub hardening PR as well that Viso has put up. I committed to it already. Also, going to be finishing some of the PR store changes that I was working on. Ideally, land the stream closure changes that have been in the pipeline for a long time. And I've got an ETH2 networking call on Wednesday. I'm on time. Any questions for me? Nope.
Nope. All right. Next up, Adine.
Yeah, DHT things. They're going. I'm working with Patar and reviewing with Arsh the async queries improvement on the proposal for the new DHT protocol. I've been working on test ground plans and accumulating metrics. We've gotten up to 1K nodes and things are working. Metrics are looking pretty good with the new DHT. Need to make sure that all of the results are real and not test artifacts, but they're looking much better than with the prior DHT code. Hoping to land the async queries PR soon, like in the next day or two, and just do more testing and get closer and closer to the various real world tests that we want to simulate. And yeah, anything else that is in the way of getting the DHT released so that GoIPFS can do an RC is this week for me.
Great. Any questions for Dean?
Hey guys, I think Ardeen has worked like a powerhouse day and night to make sure content routings, he's always awake. I don't know when he sleeps, always answers questions and has inspired us all. So can we have a round of applause for Ardeen?
Well deserved.
Ardeen, you're going red, man. I've never seen such a red
There's that magical time in between time in India and PST where there's some sleep. That's the key point right there.
Great.
Amazing work.
Awesome. Next up, we have Steb.
I'm going to try to fix the multi-header filtering issue by just filtering inside the transport. That's the only libp2p thing that I have on my plate at the moment.
Great. Viso.
Hey, I'm here. Yeah, so I've been working on gossip subhardening for gossip big-on-1. We made the spec for the changes in the protocol behavior for big-on-1, and I'm waiting for reviews on the hardening branch. So I'm calling out Steb and Raul because their input is needed. So if they could make some time, in the next few days to actually do the damn thing. That's about it for me.
Oh, any questions for Viso? All right.
Arsh added his update at the very top of the list.
All right. Next up is Arsh.
Sorry, I just didn't want to scroll down. I'm lazy. Yeah. So last week wasn't the most productive weeks for me, but things are good now and things should be smooth going ahead. However, I managed to fix some the bugs and the race conditions in the routing table management logic that we've come up for the content routing work. Basically, the race conditions between handling new connections, handling replacement candidates, etc. I also finished reviewing the async query work that Ardeen mentioned. I'm currently writing the tests for it, and it looks in really, really good shape. And I finished reviewing the identify signed records work, and I'll take it to completion after 0.5 is cut because it's not really on the critical path. But basically, I'll be taking it over from Yusuf, and yeah, it's also looking pretty good. Next is remove disjoint parts logic. We don't need disjoint queries anymore, as we discussed with Ardeen and Peter discussed it today's hack week. It makes our query slow, adds a lot of complexity, and doesn't give us much in return. I'll also be. I have set a goal of writing a test with 1,000 nodes on the test ground KED cluster. I still don't know which test, but definitely some test to help out with the content routing testing effort. That's going to be my main focus going ahead. And yeah, I've created some issues for fixing some content rounding 0.5 tech debt, stuff that we missed out, stuff didn't have time to put in. So, I mean, I guess after 0.5 goes in, let's have a call to prioritize that with Raul. That's it on my side. I'll share the issues on the channel after this call.
Perfect. If you can link them in here in the updates as well for people, that would be great. Any questions for Arsh? No. All right. We are at the end of our list. Does anybody have any agenda items or anything they want to talk about?
Just so on the kind of content routing workstream side, we're kind of intentionally, as folks sprint toward release, giving content routing a little bit of an extension for planning Q2 OKRs. That doesn't give anyone else an extension, but I know that part of landing O.5 release is starting to think about a short, sweet, focused O.6 release that can actually get us back on the release train of every 6 weeks having a release. So the planning for that probably should start before O.5 is actually shipped out the door, so that anyone who frees up from O.5 testing can start working on the things to land in O.6. So curious if there's a time plan or an async spot where people can start dropping some of the O.6 recommendations, just in case anyone does magically free up from release testing.
Yeah, if anybody has any items that we haven't previously covered in the plan, I'm going to work on updating that this week so that I can kind of like prep for the planning for O.6 and the Q2 OKRs. And so I'll share that out. And then if anybody has any items that they would like to attempt to add or kick something else out, let me know. But yeah, we'll try to keep it small and compact and move non-critical things into O.7 so we can get on the regular release cycle.
Yeah, we do have a draft roadmap through, I think, O.8 or something like that.
Yes, yeah. So I'll be updating that and then sharing that out for everybody to add to. Great. Anything else? Once, twice. Sold. All right, everybody, that is it. We will see you all next week. And next week, Europe will have daylight savings time. So we will be back for Europe folks at 6:30 p.m. UTC. All right.
If all hell doesn't break loose before that.
Yeah. All right. Bye, all.